My daughter said serve my husband or get out, so I cut off everything. When my daughter Stephanie stood in my kitchen, hands on her hips and said, "Mom, you either start treating Derek like the man of this house and serve him properly, or you need to pack up and leave," I simply smiled, set down my coffee cup and walked upstairs to my bedroom. By the time I came back down with my purse and keys, they were already discussing which room would become Derek's office, and whether they should put in a hot tub. By the end of that week, my family had discovered that the woman they thought was a helpless 70-year-old widow had just cut off their credit cards, frozen their bank accounts, and left them with exactly 24 hours to find somewhere else to live. They thought they were dealing with a confused old lady who'd lost her edge after my husband passed. They were about to learn I was Beverly Harper, a woman who'd spent 40 years as a certified public accountant, handled millions in client assets, and knew exactly how to follow every dollar they'd stolen from me. Justice was coming, and entitlement was about to meet its match. You won't believe what I did next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. 2 years ago, when Stephanie called me crying because Derek had lost his job and they were 3 months behind on their mortgage, I didn't hesitate to help. "Come stay with me," I said. "We'll figure this out together." My husband Carl had passed away just 6 months earlier, and honestly, I was grateful for the company. Stephanie was my only child, and Derek seemed like a decent enough man who was just going through a rough patch. When they arrived with my grandchildren Chloe and Noah, ages 7 and 9, I welcomed them with open arms. "It's just temporary, Mom," Stephanie promised as I helped them carry their suitcases into my 4-bedroom colonial. "Maybe 3 months, tops. Just until Derek finds something new." I should have paid attention to the warning signs immediately. Derek had barely been in my house 24 hours before he started rearranging things. He moved my late husband's favorite chair to the basement, claiming it was taking up too much space in the living room. He changed the television channels without asking, complained about my cooking, and started treating my home like his personal hotel. "Beverly," he announced after his first week, "you need to understand that I'm the man of the house now. That means dinner should be ready when I get home from job hunting, and I shouldn't have to ask for things." I bit my tongue. The man was unemployed and stressed. I could be patient. But Derek's idea of job hunting seemed to involve sitting on my couch in his pajamas until noon, then driving around town in my car, using my gas money, claiming he was networking. Meanwhile, I was doing all the cooking, cleaning, laundry, and childcare while Stephanie worked her part-time job at the local pharmacy. "Mom, you're retired," Stephanie would say when I mentioned feeling overwhelmed. "Derek's under a lot of pressure right now. The least we can do is make sure he's comfortable while he's looking for work." Comfortable? Derek was living better than he ever had. He'd taken over my home office, installed a new gaming system, and started inviting his unemployed buddies over to hang out during the day. Meanwhile, I was relegated to doing his laundry and cooking his meals. But the real red flag came during month 4, when I overheard Derek on the phone with his brother. "Yeah man, I've got it made here," he was saying. "Beverly does everything for me. It's like having a live-in maid who pays for everything. And the best part? She's old so she won't be around forever. Once Stephanie inherits this place, we'll be set for life." My blood ran cold. They weren't planning to get back on their feet. They were planning to stay permanently. That's when I started paying closer attention to their behavior. Derek wasn't just lazy. He was strategic. He'd started opening mail addressed to me, claiming he was helping with my finances. He'd convinced Stephanie to have me add her name to my checking account for emergencies. He'd even suggested I update my will to make sure everything was in order. The breaking point came last Tuesday morning. I'd been up since 5 making breakfast for everyone, packing lunches for the kids, and getting ready to drive them to school since Derek claimed my car was more reliable than Stephanie's. When Derek finally rolled out of bed at 10:30, he took one look at the kitchen and exploded. "Are you kidding me, Beverly? You left dishes in the sink? What exactly do you think your job is around here?" The dishes were the bowl and spoon he'd used for his midnight snack and left on the counter without even rinsing. "Derek," I said calmly, "I've been up for 5 hours taking care of your family. I was about to wash those." "I don't want to hear excuses," he interrupted. You live in this house rent-free, eat food we pay for, and the least you can do is keep it clean. That's basic respect for the head of household. Food we pay for? With what money? Derek hadn't worked in 8 months, and Stephanie's part-time job barely covered her gas to get there. Before I could respond, Stephanie walked into the kitchen. "What's going on?" she asked. "Your mother is getting lazy and disrespectful," Derek said. "She thinks she can just leave messes for other people to clean up." Stephanie looked at me with disappointment. "Mom, really? Derek's been working so hard on his job search. The least we can expect is a clean kitchen." That's when she delivered the line that changed everything. "Mom, you either start treating Derek like the man of this house and serve him properly, or you need to pack up and leave. We can't keep walking on eggshells around your attitude." I went to my bedroom and sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the photo of Carl on my nightstand. He'd been a quiet man, but nobody ever disrespected him in his own home. I could almost hear his voice. "Bev, you didn't work 40 years building our life so some lazy punk could steal it." That's when I heard Derek and Stephanie talking in the living room below. My bedroom was directly above, and their voices carried through the heating vents. "Thank God," Derek was saying. "I thought we'd never get her to understand who's in charge here." "I know," Stephanie replied. "But Mom needed to hear it. She's been acting like this is still her house. Well, it won't be for much longer." "Did you talk to that lawyer about getting power of attorney?" My heart stopped. "Power of attorney?" "He said we need to prove she's mentally incompetent," Stephanie said. "But with all these examples of her being forgetful and confused, it shouldn't be hard." Forgetful and confused? I was sharper at 70 than most people were at 50. Derek laughed. "Perfect. And once we have control of her finances, we can move her into one of those memory care places. They cost about $4,000 a month, but it'll be worth it to finally have our own space." "What about the house?" "That's the beauty of it. She'll sign it over to you, and we'll just tell everyone she wanted to make sure it stayed in the family. By the time anyone asks questions, she'll be too confused to contradict us." I sat there in stunned silence as they continued planning my future, like I was already dead. They discussed converting my bedroom into Derek's man cave, turning Carl's workshop into a home theater, and whether they should rent out the basement for extra income. Not once did they mention my welfare or happiness. Not once did they consider that I might have opinions about my own life. I quietly opened my laptop and started researching memory care facilities. The cheapest ones in our area started at $3,500 a month. The decent ones cost closer to $5,000 for a shared room and basic care. Meanwhile, they'd been living in my house for 8 months, saving thousands in rent while I paid for groceries, utilities, insurance, and everything else. I pulled out my calculator and started adding up numbers. Derek hadn't contributed a single dollar to household expenses since losing his job. Stephanie's part-time income barely covered her personal expenses. In 8 months, I'd essentially supported a family of 4, while they plotted to steal my home and lock me away. But the most shocking discovery came when I checked my credit report online. There, clear as day, were 3 credit inquiries I'd never authorized. Someone had been using my social security number to apply for credit cards. I called my bank immediately. "Mrs. Harper," the customer service representative said, "I show you have a joint account holder who's been making transactions. Is that correct?" "What kind of transactions?" "Let me see. There have been several large withdrawals over the past 3 months. 500 here, 1,000 there." The joint account holder signed for all of them. Stephanie. She'd been stealing money from my account, and I hadn't even noticed because Derek kept me so busy with housework and childcare. That's when I realized this wasn't just about lazy entitlement. This was organized fraud, and they'd picked the wrong accountant to mess with. The next morning, I started my day like any other. I made breakfast, saw everyone off, and began my usual cleaning routine. But instead of washing dishes, I went straight to my home office, the one Derek had borrowed for his job search. 40 years as a CPA had taught me that paper trails never lie. Derek might have thought he was clever, but he'd forgotten that I'd built a career tracking money and finding discrepancies. I started with my bank statements, printing out every transaction from the past 8 months. The pattern was immediately clear. Derek and Stephanie's spending had skyrocketed the moment they moved in, while their contributions had dropped to zero. Monthly grocery bills had doubled. Utility costs were up 60% from Derek's constant gaming and Stephanie's long showers. My car insurance had increased because I'd added Derek as a driver. Even my cable bill was higher because Derek had upgraded to premium sports packages without asking. But the real evidence came when I started digging through Derek's job search materials. The man was surprisingly careless with paperwork. In his desk drawer, I found credit card applications filled out in my name, but with his phone number listed as contact information. I also found printouts of my financial information that could only have come from accessing my personal files. Investment account statements, property tax records, even my Social Security benefits information. Derek had been systematically cataloging my assets. Most damning of all was a handwritten note in Derek's messy scrawl. Beverly's monthly income, $4,200 SS plus $1,800 pension equals $6,000. House value, approximate $380,000. Savings, $180,000 plus. Total net worth, $560,000 plus. The man had been appraising me like a business acquisition. I photographed everything with my phone, then carefully returned the papers to exactly where I'd found them. Derek might be a thief, but he wasn't observant enough to notice subtle changes. Next, I called my friend Marion, who still worked at the accounting firm where I'd spent my career. Marion, I need a favor, and I need it handled quietly. Of course, Bev. What's going on? I explained my situation, watching Marion's expression grow more horrified by the minute. Honey, this is elder financial abuse. Have you contacted the police? Not yet. I need more evidence first. Can you help me trace some transactions? Marion was one of the best forensic accountants in the state. Within 2 hours, she'd identified every fraudulent charge, every unauthorized withdrawal, and every suspicious financial activity connected to my accounts. The total damage was staggering. Derek and Stephanie had directly or indirectly cost me over $23,000 in 8 months. But Marion found something even more interesting. Bev, your daughter applied for a credit card using your house as collateral last week. It was declined because she doesn't have legal ownership, but the application is still in the system. She tried to use my house to get credit? A $50,000 line of credit. If it had been approved, she would have had access to substantial funds secured by your property. I felt sick. My own daughter had tried to steal $50,000 from me. That afternoon, I made another important call to my attorney, Patricia Wong. Patricia, I need to see you immediately. And I need to change my will. Bev, what's wrong? You sound upset. I'll explain everything when I see you. But right now, I need to make sure certain people can never get their hands on my assets. Patricia scheduled me for first thing the next morning. I spent the rest of the day printing financial records, copying documents, and building a case that would make Derek and Stephanie regret the day they decided to steal from me. What they didn't know was that Beverly Harper didn't just balance books. I knew how to audit people's entire lives. And I was about to audit theirs right out of my house. Thursday morning, I got dressed in my best business suit, the charcoal gray one I used to wear to important client meetings. I looked in the bathroom mirror and saw something I hadn't seen in months. The sharp, confident woman who'd built a successful 40-year career. Beverly Harper was back. My first stop was Patricia Wong's law office. Patricia had handled Carl's estate and knew my financial situation better than anyone. Bev, she said, looking at the evidence I'd spread across her conference table, this is systematic financial elder abuse. We're talking about felony charges here. What are my options? Patricia reviewed my documentation with the careful eye that had made her one of the most respected family attorneys in our county. Legally, you can remove them from your home immediately. They have no tenant rights because they're not paying rent, and there's no lease agreement. You can also press charges for fraud, identity theft, and financial abuse. How quickly can we move? With this evidence, I can have restraining orders and eviction notices ready by tomorrow. But Bev, there's something else we should discuss. Patricia pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Your daughter has clearly been planning to gain control of your assets through legal manipulation. We need to protect you from future attempts. I recommend creating an irrevocable trust that puts your assets beyond anyone's reach." I leaned forward. "What does that mean?" "It means even if someone fraudulently obtained power of attorney over you, they couldn't touch your house, your savings, or your investments. The trust would be managed by an independent trustee, someone who can't be intimidated or manipulated." "How long would that take?" "I can have the paperwork ready by Monday." "But there's something else you should consider." Patricia's expression grew serious. "Based on what you've shown me, Derek and Stephanie aren't just opportunistic thieves. They're systematic predators. They've been planning this for months, maybe longer. People like this don't just go away quietly when confronted." "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting we don't just stop them. We make sure they can never do this to you or anyone else again." My next stop was First Security Bank, where I'd done business for 30 years. I asked to speak privately with the branch manager, Tom Richardson. "Tom, I need to make some immediate changes to my accounts, and I need your help documenting some fraudulent activity." I showed Tom the evidence of unauthorized withdrawals and credit applications. His face grew grim as he reviewed the documents. "Mrs. Harper, I'm required to report suspected elder financial abuse to Adult Protective Services. Are you prepared for that?" "I'm counting on it." Tom helped me freeze all my existing accounts and open new ones that Derek and Stephanie couldn't access. We also set up a system to monitor any future attempts to use my social security number or personal information. "There's one more thing," Tom said. "Your daughter listed this bank as a reference on that credit application. She claimed you'd given verbal permission for her to access your assets for family emergencies. Did anyone verify that with me?" "No, because the application was denied for other reasons. But it shows their pattern of deception." I nodded. "Tom, I want you to flag my accounts for any suspicious activity. If anyone tries to access my information or claims to represent me, I want to know immediately." My final stop was the most important: the police station. Detective Angela Murphy listened patiently as I explained my situation and showed her my evidence. "Mrs. Harper, what you're describing is a clear case of elder financial abuse. The credit card applications alone constitute identity theft. But I have to ask, are you sure you want to press charges against your own daughter?" I thought about Stephanie as a little girl, how proud I'd been when she graduated college, how happy I'd been when she got married. Then I thought about her voice as she planned to lock me in a memory care facility. "Detective Murphy, my daughter chose to commit crimes against me. I'm simply choosing to report those crimes. What outcome are you hoping for?" I smiled. "I want my family to learn that actions have consequences. And I want other elderly people to know they don't have to accept abuse from anyone, even family." What Derek and Stephanie didn't know was that Beverly Harper had spent 4 decades helping clients protect their assets from people exactly like them. I'd seen every scam, every manipulation tactic, every legal loophole predators used to steal from vulnerable people. Now I was about to use that knowledge to destroy their plans so completely that they'd never recover. The best part? Everything I was planning was perfectly legal. They taught me that family loyalty was a one-way street. Now I was about to show them what happened when you tried to steal from someone who knew how to follow money trails better than they knew how to hide them. Friday morning arrived cold and clear. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat at my kitchen table reviewing my final preparations. Derek was still asleep. The man rarely got up before 11. Stephanie had left for her morning shift at the pharmacy. The kids were at school. Perfect timing. At exactly 9 o'clock, I made my first phone call. "Patricia, it's Beverly. Is everything ready?" "Yes. The restraining orders are filed, the eviction notices are prepared, and the trust paperwork is complete. Are you sure you want to do this today?" I've never been more sure of anything in my life. At 9:30, my doorbell rang. 2 police officers stood on my front porch, along with Patricia and a woman I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Harper," the older officer said. "I'm Officer Chin, and this is Officer Rodriguez. We understand you need to serve some legal documents." "Yes, thank you for coming." Derek appeared at the top of the stairs in his pajamas, looking confused. "Beverly, what's going on? Who are these people?" Derek, please come downstairs. We need to talk. Derek descended slowly, his expression shifting from confusion to worry as he saw the police officers. Derek Wells, Officer Chin said, "You're being served with a restraining order and eviction notice. You have 24 hours to remove yourself and your belongings from this property." Derek's face went white. "What? That's impossible. We live here. Beverly, tell them this is a mistake." I stood up from my kitchen table and looked Derek directly in the eyes. "There's no mistake, Derek. I know about the credit card applications you filled out in my name. I know about the money you and Stephanie have been stealing from my accounts. I know about your plan to have me declared incompetent so you could steal my house." Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. That's not. Beverly, you're confused. We've been taking care of you." That's when the woman I didn't recognize stepped forward. "Mr. Wells, I'm Detective Murphy with the Financial Crimes Unit. You're under arrest for identity theft, financial elder abuse, and fraud." The next few minutes were chaos. Derek tried to argue, then tried to run, then started screaming about how I was a crazy old lady who didn't know what I was doing. The officers cuffed him and read him his rights while he ranted about his rights, and how this was all a misunderstanding. "You can't do this to me," Derek yelled as they walked him to the police car. "I'll sue you. I'll have you declared mentally incompetent. You'll regret this." I watched calmly from my kitchen window as they drove Derek away. 30 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Stephanie calling from the pharmacy. "Mom, what the hell is going on? Derek just called me from jail saying you had him arrested. This has to be some kind of mistake." "There's no mistake, Stephanie. Derek was arrested for stealing from me. And you'll be joining him soon." "What are you talking about? Mom, you're not making sense." "I'm making perfect sense. I know about the $50,000 credit line you tried to get using my house as collateral. I know about the money you've been taking from our joint account. I know about your plan to have me declared incompetent." Silence on the other end of the line. "Mom, I can explain." "There's nothing to explain. You and Derek chose to steal from me instead of asking for help. You chose to plan my imprisonment instead of showing me respect. You made your choices, and now you get to live with the consequences." "But Mom, what about the kids? Where are we supposed to go? You should have thought about that before you decided to commit felonies against your mother." I hung up the phone and immediately called the school. "Hello, this is Beverly Harper. I need to speak with the principal about my grandchildren, Chloe and Noah Wells. Their parents have been arrested, and I'll be caring for the children temporarily." What Derek and Stephanie didn't know was that I'd already contacted Child Protective Services. The children would be safe with me, while their parents dealt with the legal consequences of their actions. By 3 o'clock that afternoon, word had spread through our small town. My neighbor Carol knocked on my door. "Bev, I heard police cars here this morning. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine now, Carol. I just had to remove some unwanted house guests." "Good for you. I always thought Derek was a lazy bum." "And Stephanie." Carol shook her head. "I can't believe she'd steal from her own mother." Neither could I. But the evidence was pretty clear. That evening, as I tucked Chloe and Noah into bed, Noah asked me a question that broke my heart. "Grandma Bev, are Mommy and Daddy in trouble because they were mean to you?" I sat on the edge of his bed and chose my words carefully. "Your parents made some bad choices, sweetheart. But that doesn't mean they don't love you. Sometimes adults have to face consequences for their actions, so they can learn to make better choices." "Will they come home?" "Eventually. But right now you're going to stay with me, and we're going to make sure you're safe and loved." As I turned off the lights in their room, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. For the first time since Derek and Stephanie had moved in, my house felt like my home again. The weekend passed quietly, but Monday morning brought a development I hadn't expected. I was having coffee and reading the newspaper when my doorbell rang. Standing on my porch was Janet Morrison, a reporter from our local newspaper. "Mrs. Harper, I'm following up on a story about elder financial abuse in our community. Would you be willing to share your experience?" I invited Janet in and spent an hour telling her everything. She took careful notes and asked thoughtful questions. "Mrs. Harper, What made you decide to fight back instead of just accepting the situation? I realized that staying silent wasn't protecting my family. It was enabling their criminal behavior. If I'd kept quiet, Derek and Stephanie would have eventually destroyed not just my life, but my grandchildren's lives too. What do you want other elderly people to know? That you don't have to accept abuse from anyone, even family members, and that there are people who will help you if you're brave enough to ask for it. The article ran on Wednesday's front page with the headline, "Local Grandmother Fights Back Against Family Fraud." It included details about the charges against Derek and Stephanie, information about recognizing elder abuse, and resources for victims. By Thursday, my phone was ringing constantly. Friends from church, former colleagues, neighbors I barely knew. Everyone wanted to express their support. My friend Helen called from the accounting firm where I used to work. "Bev, the whole office is talking about your story. We're so proud of you for standing up for yourself." Thank you, Helen. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. You know, we've had 3 other people call since the article came out. All elderly clients whose families have been pressuring them to sign over assets. They want to know if you'd be willing to speak with them. I thought about it. Actually, yes. I'd be happy to help. That Friday, our local senior center called. "Mrs. Harper, we'd like to invite you to speak at our next community meeting." After your newspaper article, we've had dozens of questions about financial abuse prevention. Word spread quickly through our community. The grocery store cashier thanked me for showing everyone that old doesn't mean helpless. My mail carrier said his own mother had been inspired to review her financial arrangements after reading my story. But the most meaningful response came from an unexpected source. Detective Murphy called on Saturday morning. "Mrs. Harper, I wanted to update you on your case. Since your story ran in the newspaper, we've received 6 additional reports of similar crimes. Apparently, your courage to speak out has encouraged other victims to come forward. That's wonderful news. There's more. We've discovered that Derek had been running this same scam on an elderly man across town. He'd been doing odd jobs for Mr. Patterson and gradually gained access to his financial information. Mr. Patterson was too embarrassed to report it, but your case gave him the courage to press charges. How much did Derek steal from him? Over $12,000. And we suspect there may be other victims we haven't found yet." I felt a chill. Derek wasn't just a lazy opportunist. He was a predator who targeted vulnerable elderly people systematically. Detective Murphy, what happens now? With multiple victims and clear evidence of a pattern, Derek is looking at serious prison time. Your daughter's charges are less severe, but she's also facing significant consequences. That afternoon, I received a visitor I wasn't expecting. Stephanie's best friend Amanda knocked on my door, looking nervous. "Mrs. Harper, can I talk to you about Stephanie?" I invited her in, curious about what she might have to say. "I need you to know that some of us tried to warn Stephanie that Derek was bad news," Amanda said. "He was always pressuring her to ask you for money, always complaining about having to pretend to be grateful to you. Why didn't anyone tell me?" "We tried to talk to Stephanie, but she was so defensive about Derek. She said you wouldn't understand their situation, that you were old-fashioned and judgmental." Amanda fidgeted with her coffee cup. "Mrs. Harper, I think Stephanie really believed Derek loved her. She couldn't see that he was using her to get to your money. That doesn't excuse her behavior, Amanda. Stephanie made her own choices." "I know, but I wanted you to understand that she wasn't evil, she was just weak. And Derek took advantage of that." I thought about Amanda's words long after she left. Maybe Stephanie had been manipulated by Derek. But she was still a grown woman who'd chosen to steal from her mother and planned to have me locked away. Some actions were unforgivable, regardless of the motivation behind them. 2 weeks later, I sat in a courtroom watching Derek face the consequences of his actions. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Multiple victims, clear patterns of fraud, documented theft, and attempted identity theft. Derek's court-appointed attorney tried to argue that my charges were exaggerated, that this was just a family misunderstanding blown out of proportion. The prosecutor wasn't having it. "Your Honor, the defendant systematically targeted elderly victims, stealing over $40,000 across multiple cases. This wasn't a family dispute, It was organized criminal activity. When it came time for victim impact statements, I stood up and addressed the court directly. Your Honor, Derek Wells didn't just steal my money. He stole my sense of safety in my own home. He exploited my love for my daughter and grandchildren to gain access to my life savings. He planned to have me declared incompetent and locked away so he could steal my house. I looked directly at Derek, who refused to meet my eyes. But most importantly, he taught my grandchildren that it's acceptable to abuse elderly people. He showed them that family loyalty means taking advantage of the people who love you most. The judge listened carefully to all the evidence and victim statements. Mr. Wells, you've been found guilty of multiple counts of elder financial abuse, identity theft, and fraud. These are serious crimes that cause lasting harm to vulnerable members of our community. Derek got 4 years in prison and was ordered to pay full restitution to all his victims. Stephanie's hearing was the following week. Her charges were less severe, but the consequences were still significant. Ms. Wells, the judge said, while your role appears to have been secondary to Mr. Wells, you still chose to participate in financial crimes against your own mother. This court takes elder abuse very seriously. Stephanie received 2 years of probation, community service, and was ordered to attend counseling for family relationship issues. But the legal consequences were just the beginning. Detective Murphy called me the day after Derek's sentencing. Mrs. Harper, I wanted you to know that Derek's case has been referred to federal authorities. They're investigating whether he was part of a larger elder fraud network. What does that mean? It means Derek might be connected to other criminals who target elderly people across state lines. If that's true, he could face additional federal charges. I also learned that Derek's previous employers had been contacted about his criminal activities. Word was that he'd been terminated from several jobs for irregular financial behavior. Information that might have been useful to know before I welcomed him into my home. The financial recovery process was more complex than I'd expected. While Derek and Stephanie were ordered to pay restitution, actually collecting that money would take time. My attorney Patricia helped me file insurance claims for some of the fraud losses, and my bank agreed to reverse some of the unauthorized charges. But the process was slow and bureaucratic. The important thing, Patricia explained, is that you're financially secure regardless of whether you recover every stolen dollar. Your trust is now completely protected from any future schemes. She was right. The irrevocable trust meant that even if someone did fraudulently gain legal authority over me, they couldn't touch my house, savings, or investments. I'd learned from this experience and made sure it could never happen again. The most satisfying update came from my former colleague Marion, who'd helped me trace the financial evidence. Bev, that forensic accounting work we did on your case has been used as evidence in 3 other elder abuse cases. Your documentation was so thorough that prosecutors are using it as a template for building similar cases. Really? You've helped law enforcement understand how to track these financial crimes more effectively. Your case is literally helping other victims get justice. I realized that fighting back hadn't just protected me. It had created a roadmap for other elderly people facing similar abuse. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just getting justice for yourself. It's making sure the people who hurt you can never hurt anyone else again. 3 months after Derek's sentencing, I received a letter I'd been both expecting and dreading. Stephanie wanted to meet with me. I agreed to see her at Patricia's law office, with my attorney present. I wasn't taking any chances. Stephanie looked terrible. She'd lost weight, her hair was unkempt, and she had dark circles under her eyes. Prison orange definitely wasn't her color during her brief stint in county jail before making bail. "Mom," she said as soon as she saw me, "I'm so sorry. I never meant for things to go this far." I studied my daughter's face, looking for signs of genuine remorse versus self-pity. "Stephanie, you participated in planning to have me declared mentally incompetent, so you could steal my house. Exactly how far did you think things were going to go?" I know. But Derek convinced me that you weren't taking care of yourself properly, that you needed more help than you were admitting. So your solution was to steal from me?" Stephanie started crying. "I was scared, Mom. Derek said if we didn't take control of your finances, You'd end up losing everything to scammers or making bad decisions. He said we were protecting you. I felt a familiar surge of anger. Stephanie, I'm a certified public accountant with 40 years of experience managing money. What part of my financial history suggested I needed Derek's protection? I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly. Derek was so convincing, and I loved him, and I thought. You thought what? That I was too stupid to notice you stealing from my bank account? Too senile to realize you were planning to lock me away? Patricia leaned forward. Stephanie, what exactly are you hoping to accomplish with this meeting? Stephanie wiped her eyes. I want my children back. I want my mom back. I want our family back. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, for the first time in months. Stephanie, you destroyed our family the moment you chose Derek over me. You chose his comfort over my dignity. You chose theft over honesty. You chose to plan my imprisonment over respecting my independence. But I love you, Mom. No, Stephanie. You loved what I could provide for you. My house, my money, my free childcare and housework. But you didn't love me, because if you had, you never would have participated in Derek's scheme. Stephanie sobbed harder. What about Chloe and Noah? They need their mother. Chloe and Noah need stability and safety. Right now they have that with me. When you prove that you can provide those things without stealing or lying, we can discuss custody arrangements. How am I supposed to prove anything? I can't even afford an apartment. I pulled out a document Patricia had prepared. I'm willing to help you get back on your feet, but with conditions. Stephanie looked hopeful for the first time since arriving. You'll complete your court-ordered counseling and community service. You'll get a full-time job and maintain it for at least 6 months. You'll attend parenting classes and financial responsibility courses. And you'll have no contact with Derek Wells. But Derek is a convicted felon who targeted elderly people for financial crimes. If you maintain any relationship with him, you'll get no help from me, and I'll fight any custody requests. Stephanie was quiet for a long moment. Mom, what if I do all those things? What if I prove I've changed? Can we really be a family again? I thought about the little girl who used to help me bake cookies, the teenager who'd been so proud to show me her report cards, the young woman who'd called me crying when she needed help. I don't know, Stephanie. Trust, once broken, is very hard to rebuild. But I'm willing to give you the chance to try. As Stephanie left that day, I felt something I hadn't experienced since this whole ordeal began. Hope. Not hope that everything would go back to the way it was. That was impossible. But hope that maybe, eventually, Stephanie could become the kind of person who deserved to be in my life again. Some relationships can survive betrayal, but only if the person who caused the betrayal is willing to do the hard work of earning forgiveness. Time would tell if Stephanie was that kind of person. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my kitchen on a Sunday morning, watching Chloe and Noah eat the pancakes I made from scratch. The house is peaceful, filled with the sounds of children's laughter instead of Derek's complaints. My new life is everything I'd hoped it would be. The trust Patricia set up has protected my assets completely. I've become a volunteer advocate for elder abuse victims, helping other families navigate the legal and financial complexities of these crimes. The Senior Center has asked me to lead monthly workshops on financial protection for older adults. Most importantly, I wake up every morning in a home where I'm respected and valued. The legal outcomes exceeded my expectations. Derek received an additional 18 months in federal prison when authorities discovered he'd been part of a multi-state elder fraud ring. He's now serving 5.5 years total, and will likely never be able to work in any position involving financial trust again. As for Stephanie, she's slowly rebuilding her life. She completed her community service, finished her counseling programs, and got a full-time job as a pharmacy technician. She's been attending weekly supervised visits with Chloe and Noah, and I can see genuine changes in her attitude and behavior. Last week, she brought me a letter she'd written in her counseling sessions. Mom, she said, I want you to read this when you're ready. It's my attempt to really understand what I did to you, and take responsibility for it. I haven't read the letter yet. I'm not sure I'm ready. But the fact that Stephanie wrote it, without being asked or ordered by a court, suggests she might finally be developing genuine remorse instead of just self-pity. The most rewarding part of this experience has been helping other victims. Through my advocacy work, I've assisted 12 families dealing with similar financial abuse situations. Each case is different, but the patterns are always the same. Predators target people they perceive as vulnerable, then gradually escalate their control and theft. My friend Helen from the accounting firm has started referring suspected elder abuse cases to me. "You have credibility with victims that law enforcement sometimes lacks," she told me. "When someone sees that you fought back and won, it gives them hope that they can too." Detective Murphy still calls occasionally with updates on cases where my documentation or testimony has been helpful. "Mrs. Harper," she said during our last conversation, "your case has literally changed how we investigate elder financial abuse. You've probably prevented dozens of other crimes just by refusing to stay silent. But the most meaningful change has been in my relationship with my grandchildren." "Grandma Bev," Noah said yesterday as I was helping him with homework, "are you happier now?" "What makes you ask that, sweetheart? You smile more. And you laugh. You didn't do that much when Daddy Derek lived here." "You're right. I am happier now. Is it because Daddy Derek was mean to you?" I chose my words carefully. Sometimes adults make choices that hurt people they're supposed to love. When that happens, it's okay to protect yourself, even if it makes other people upset. Like when Billy at school was being mean to me, and you told me to tell the teacher? Exactly like that. Sometimes the best way to help someone is to make sure they face consequences for their bad choices. Looking back, I realized that fighting back wasn't just about protecting my money or my house. It was about teaching my grandchildren that abuse is never acceptable, that elderly people deserve respect, and that being family doesn't give anyone the right to hurt you. I'm 70 years old, and I just learned that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. I spent 8 months accepting unacceptable behavior because I was afraid of losing my family. What I discovered is that people who truly love you don't make you choose between your dignity and their affection. Real family protects each other. Real family lifts each other up. Real family doesn't steal from each other or plan to lock each other away. The truth always comes to light, and sometimes the best gift you can give someone is refusing to enable their worst behavior. I may have lost the daughter I thought I had, but I gained something more valuable. The knowledge that I'm stronger than I ever imagined, and that standing up for myself protected not just me, but everyone Derek might have victimized in the future. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's becoming the person you were always meant to be.
If this story got you thinking, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that hit deep, and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And hey, if you know someone who needs to hear this one, share it with them. Thanks for watching.